Welcome. Sorry for the technical difficulties last night. Today we're going to be discussing basically just taking a deeper dive into the understanding of astrotheology, how the perennial wisdom is strung through the various garments of esoteric religions, and also having a better look at the great esoteric divide of the 19th century, where the Western current was conflicting with the Eastern current temporarily, and where the information that was distributed from the Eastern current may have been also corrupted as the Western current was. In that time, we were actually, the Western current obviously kind of fell into literalization and organizations and institutions and more like a trade and barter type of spirituality and more of a literalization of ancient transcendental truths. Whereas in the East, they also got corrupted as well, and we'll get into that. But one interesting subject is to know how the when we leave the dogmas of the West, right, we often seek the Eastern knowledge as well. And because we're more receptive at that point, because we've departed from the dogmas of the West on our journey, right, we depart from the literalization or the authority of man-made institutions. And then we go and to seek knowledge from the East because it seems so rich and fluent, and it is, right? The Eastern knowledge is rich, full of mystic lore and intelligent beauty within the scenery and metaphors of all of their scriptures, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam. But they too also went through their Kali Yuga phase as well, where they had lost and departed from their actual doctrine. For example, a lot of people don't know that what they term Hinduism, which actually the Vedic tradition was actually monotheistic in nature. It was they worshiped the supreme Brahman in truth and spirit, or if they were more on the devotional path, they worshiped Krishna, the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, as a supreme universal cause of all the effects that we see. In a sense, they paid reverence to the cause of all effects, and they only saw the demigods as designated delegations of that one supreme spirit. So, and also today we're going to be exploring a lot of information from the book that was recommended by Thomas H. Burgoyne called Illuminated Brahmanism. Now, Illuminated Brahmanism, the True Theosophy, you can find it on Google. It is a book that was recommended by the author of Light of Egypt. And in that, and also if anyone in the chat can let me know if they can even hear me, that would be great. Let's see. Testing 1, 2, 3. Because that could be an issue. I might be. Hello. Yeah, if anyone's in the chat, let me know. But anyway, I'm going to keep going. Essentially, the teachings of the path and the path of reincarnation might not be as true as we suspected, just because there are other points of view, and understanding that the earth is a womb or a tomb that you may not necessarily have to return. Of course, there's the process of losing your self-cognizance through the process of disintegration of the black satellite. But, I mean, if that's not the case, reincarnation seems to be a perception that was based on other truths. So I'm just going to test here. Yep, everything is good to go. Cool, sounds good. Well, the Eastern current fell into the dogma of reincarnation as a political tool to basically say that this group of people is experiencing these hardships based on the karma that they are experiencing from a past life. Or one may even say that they are uh, paying for punishments that they may or may not remember from a past life, right? So we have these ideas that we fall into, and we understand that um, from an esoteric point of view, saw it a little bit differently. They saw it more as this realm was a sarcophagus or a mold or a spirit factory or a womb that is creating immortal beings to live in the higher planes of existence. That's the point of Jacob's ladder. That's the point of understanding that the soul vortexes into matter and becomes substantiated to the point where it's fixed. Now, this point gives the soul an opportunity to gain preferences, to understand the difference between pleasure and pain, to understand and distinguish what it's like to live in the wilderness of the realm of duality, right? Coming from the realm of simplicity and delight and falling into the realm of duality is the nature of the manifested soul. So we embark on a long journey here as we descend down from the subtle planes into the physical realm. And once we're cognizant, once we've reached a place of cognition within our soul, we are prepared then to depart from the physical cocoon. Similar to a butterfly, the worm is the unnatured soul, right? It's the soul without preferences. It's a soul without distinction. It still lives in the pleroma. Once it descends, right, it descends into the cocoon itself. The cocoon is a symbol of the physical realm in and of itself. Your whole life, you are in a cocoon. Your circuits and energies are surging to create, you could say, light wings, as Rudolf Steiner would put, that the spirits that live in the realm of fire and air, their energy and frequency is so high, it appears that they even have wings shooting out of their nervous system just because the circuitry, their energy and frequency is so high, it appears that they even have wings shooting out of their nervous system just because the circuitry is different, right? You're living in a more subtle reality where teleportation and flight is of no uncommon feat. Whereas in the physical realm, levitation is an extraordinary event. But in the higher dimensions, you'll see that uh, the consciousness is able to aspire to greater heights and be able to aspire to bend physical laws that we wouldn't be able to bend here. So the whole point is to understand that there is another esoteric current that doesn't necessarily teach endless cycles of karma, endless cycles of reincarnation, degenderment of the soul, for example, that you are a genderless soul and only in the physical realm you acquire gender, that after you depart from the physical realm, you are not a gendered soul. That was taught by the Blavatsky current. That's not necessarily true. If we understand the law of polarity, the law of gender, and we understand that the spiritual realm emanates the physical realm, that the physical realm, our physical body, our physical sense of being, emanates the physical realm, that the physical realm, our physical body, our physical sense of being is a direct manifestation of the soul and spirit. Okay. And also to understand in the axiom of eternal immortal progression and instantaneous transference. Because when we understand these terminologies, we can understand the way that we have been basically living in between the realms our entire life, from the physical realm to the astral realm, back to the physical realm to the astral realm, with some glimpses of the spiritual realm throughout our life wave. And to understand that this is all a training to acquire the modus operandi to be able to operate in the vehicle that you will acquire upon departing from this physical realm. And how you've geared your nervous system and geared your mind and geared your intellect and geared your emotions and geared your automatonic instinctual mode of behavior will determine how you're able to navigate those parallel realms in the next life. But first, you have to learn how to navigate the physical realm. Navigating the physical realm, you first start by understanding how to acquire full cognition. You first start by understanding how to acquire full cognizance and full domination over the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. You have to fully realize and understand that you are spirit in the flesh, that you are a physical atomic being that has physical operations that take place, as well as understanding your water nature, the emotions, the astral, the imagination, understanding your aerial nature, which is your mind, your ability to fly in your mind, floating thoughts, to be, they call it lightheaded, right? Because it's almost as if your head is in the essence in the air kingdom, right? And then above the head, which is the spirit, which is fire. So we understand how to utilize all of the elements in correspondence and to separate them individually, correct? In the start of the path, we have to understand and separate them: earth from water, from air to fire, and refine them one by one and perfect them. We take them apart. We take a step back from as the witness and observe our physical processes. We observe our astral experiences, our emotional responses. We observe how the mind works, the mind tendencies, the tendencies of our ability on whether or not we can control thought, concentrate thought, or exist in the cosmic void of thought, right? And understand fire, the spiritual enthusiasm, in spiritual charisma, to go through that the Greek Platonic scale of the elements to reach the manifested Christic being, the eternal star. So we can take a look at how this esoteric science has been threaded into various fairy tales, right? Stories, fairy tales of the past are physical manifestations or scriptures or cryptograms that explain the unexplainable. And understanding the law of analogy and correspondence will help you know that everything that takes place below, every event, every story, every type of event or experience that takes place has an analogy somewhere in the universe, somewhere in the heavens. So, for example, the story of Jack and Jill, which hides one of the oldest spiritual teachings on the relationship between the sun and the moon, spirit and the soul, the masculine and feminine. Jack being Jacob, the heel catcher, Jill being the moon, the polarity of fire and water, the polarity of Leo and Cancer, the polarity of the summer months and the cold months, right? The cycle of night and day. So Jack representing the sun, or the solar active principle, and the rising spiritual force, whereas Jill representing the moon, the reflective principle, the receptive soul that follows after the sun, because we have to understand that within our anatomy we have the Ida and Pingala, and with the Ida and Pingala we have the receptive nature and the active nature. And in meditation we have tranquility, but it's also about active solar meditation to be able to establish a plane of existence, to experience the analogies of the universe on that chessboard. For example, instead of just meditating on silent no thought, that's more of a lunar meditation. A more solar meditation would to be activating the active principle of meditation and imagining a plane of existence, right? If you're entering another realm or higher dimension, you have to create the effects for the cause, and you have to raise your cognizance and frequency up to that level. So you have to establish a plane of existence. Once you establish that plane of existence, you dwell upon that plane, right? And then you start to, if you're familiar with the teachings of Franz Barden, from the initiation to Hermetics, we start very slowly, first with meditation. From the initiation to Hermetics, we start very slowly, first with meditation exercises of only observing thought, and then controlling thought, fixated thought, and then void of thought, and then slowly add imagination, imagining a gong, imagining the sound of rain, okay? And then imagine you're in a field. Maybe you see animals, maybe you see people. And as you acquire more and more ability to imagine that you're in another realm with people, places, and things. These people, places, and things are then endowed with that physical resonance of the properties of that astral plane where those people really are. Because as we know, the key to magic is understand that imagination is not made up. Everything you imagine is real. Everything you imagine is actually existing on a higher plane or a higher plateau of existence. Everything that you can think of, and everything you can cognize already was. As Eliphas Levi said, it's not that we do good because we do good to please. We do good because good is good in its eternal nature. It is the cosmic it. Goodness in and of itself it is. We practice justice because justice already existed before us. We were only able to expand our minds and able to conceive of that cosmic principle. So with the allegory of Jack and Jill, the moon representing the reflected principle of the receptive soul following the sun went up the hill. The sun and moon ascend the arc of heaven, which is the dome of the zodiac. And this is the celestial mountain, or the mountain that the goat climbs as well, because that's all of the nature and seasonal allegories and esoteric interpretations can be found within all of the esoteric literatures of the past, whether it be Jack and Jill, Little Red Riding Hood, or any type of story that you could think of. It always contains the elements of the seasons, because the seasons are the direct manifestation of the material elemental nature of the unseen spirit. So we have the unseen spirit in the astral realm, and the mental realm, and the causal realm, which all have divine ideas influxing down into the physical realm. And when this takes place, we are able to then receive images and insights and thoughts and pick up at them just like a radio receiver, and be able to take that information and be able to compact it into images. This is why cryptograms are so important. Cryptograms are, if you can break down the word cryptogram, right? Crypt means picture, right? Crypt means secret, sacred, right? Hidden, cryptic, right? Gram is picture, okay? It's a cryptic picture. That's why every story of the holy books can be seen in a beautiful, vivid picture. You can make beautiful pictures of all the stories of all the holy books, whether the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, you name it. You can make a cryptogram out of it, because cryptograms carry messages from the spiritual realm, the unseen realm, and create into an image. And when I say unseen, I'm just saying it unseen by the physical manifested realm. These images and physical, the whole environment is basically an emanation from the spirit world. The physical form wasn't made here in the physical world. The spiritual form was made in the higher spiritual worlds. That blueprint descends as an idea and then into the realm of archetype, right? We go from the realm of idea to archetype, and then becoming a thought, then an emotion, and then a form. In the astral realm, it creates the form that is able to manifest in the physical. And then in the physical realm is like a womb or incubator that incubates that individualized essence that descended down the arc, right? Just like the sun descends, right? The soul descends. The sun and the seasons reflect the whole analogy of the soul. And once you understand this, you can understand the Bible and the holy books and now anagogically. The Bible and the holy books and now anagogically, right? Because there's different interpretations of the holy books. We have the face value, the method, the face value, the methodical, literary, astrotheological, biochemical, and so on and so forth. We have to reach the anagogical level. The anagogical level is seeing the big picture, right? It's seeing the story of Moses going into Egypt, or Joseph going to Egypt as the soul descending into physical matter. And when you leave captivity and go to the promised land, it's seen as the soul liberated from physical matter, going back into its positive polarity, the spirit. And that's how we have to start seeing things. We have to start looking at the deeper layers, not just the the catchy, the catchy physical nature of the whole thing. We have to also understand it from the transcendental anagogical, because back in the golden age, when the saints and seers went into transcendental trance and saw these holy divine things, they were able to have such an ecstatic experience that they would bring on chills and shivers and that feeling of an epiphany or serendipity, experience of ecstatic love and ecstatic understanding, where gnosis strikes you almost as if it's from the great beyond, almost as if struck by lightning. You are struck with the wonderment, the divine wonderment and bewilderment, as you feel as if you're standing before the Moses as he saw God in the burning bush. But it's not something, it's a cryptogram. See, it's not something that you can actually track down that where did this happen, because it happens to you today, tomorrow. You could experience your burning bush moment. You can experience your Noah in the ark moment. You can experience your Jacob's ladder moment. And you can ask yourself, have you experienced it? Have you wrestled with the divine idea while sleeping and ascended a ladder and spoke to higher beings, higher intelligences, been to places that you shouldn't have, things that don't make sense? You shouldn't be able to fly. You shouldn't be able to do things that you're not able to do. So that only shows that if you're able to think about it and cognize it and imagine it, then of course you're able to understand that that is an actual reality. You could see yourself in as Swedenborg said, beautiful landscapes, places that you shouldn't ever be able to see. Floating mountains, floating flying chariots, things that aren't supposed to happen, right? Things that we're just inventing, correct? But we have to understand that the astral realm is actually the future realm. What we conceive of as the future, well, we're not going to be living in the physical realm over 200 years at max. So once you leave, your future is the next plane. So, of course, the great esotericists and the great thinkers and seers acquire their knowledge from the future from beyond the tomb. We have to start acquiring our knowledge and understand that there's something beyond the matrix. Right now, the mainstream's calling it the matrix. Right, the matrix, it's the mainstream's calling it the matrix. Right, the matrix, it's a confined environment where the unlimited soul is placed into a casket of limitation. But that's just figuratively speaking, because actually it acquires the proper soul nutriment to acquire an individuality. And that individuality, once it transcends this physical realm, is able to operate in the higher realms in a higher, more subtle vehicle. Just like in the Upanishads, it said, once the soul departs from the physical body, it takes on to a higher, more subtle form. There is no reason to fear. The magician conquers fear, acquires true will, acquires true knowledge, and does what the higher will tells him or her to do. Thy will be done. Once you understand this axiom and you combine it into your everyday life, you'll start forming a personal point of consciousness. And that personal point of consciousness will allow you to be your arc to the astral waters. Because if you think you've got enter the astral waters now, wait till after this life. Wait till you actually have a full-on awakened lucid dream, or you transition to the next life. Then you'll understand going through the Red Sea and entering the Promised Land. So then you can understand, yes, anatomically you can see that heaven's in the head and hell is in the lower chakras, and earth is in the heart. But understand that's just a reflection of the macrocosm, and that the macrocosm is built in the same way. You have highs, mids, and lows, just like with everything. You're going to have either a high, mid, or low experience, a high, mid, or low day. The triple trilogy, right, of mood. And understanding that those moods come from the astral weather. A cloudy day may make you feel a little off in the physical realm, But what impacts you even more is the internal astral weather within yourself. That astral weather has a higher impact on how you feel. If you're feeling sentimental or melancholic or ambitious, or you're feeling in wonderment, right? These are all different seasons within ourselves. So now as we enter the season of fall, we can understand that every season comes with its esoteric, symbolic analogy to the soul. And today we're going to be exploring the law of analogy and kind of understand how the law of analogy will open up the book of nature for you and be able to understand all things, right? So through the law of analogy, we can understand that in fall, leaves fall off the trees wither, things start to die. It's in direct opposition to, the months of summer. It is a time of falling away, right? Disintegration. We see the leaves falling and dying. And for the first time ever, if you saw a tree lose its leaves, you may feel worried and say, hey, the tree has died. There's no more leaves on the tree. It looks dead. And then as you live through the next cycle, you would see it sprout and regain again. And that law analogy shows you that if the physical realm is a direct correlation and similarity to the hereafter, and understanding the process of the soul, that we can understand that just like the trees resprout on the tree again, if the root's still there, then so the soul is renewed. That life is fully renewed, fully eternal. And that fall plays a very important time, because when fall correlates to Libra or sunset, and sunset and the time of Libra is the best time to meditate because the veil is thinned. And when the thinning of the veil takes place between the physical and the spiritual realm, and the conscious and the subconscious realm, then you're able to pierce the veil more easily. So we can understand that fall teaches us to be able to be in a state of piercing the veil more easily, just like in Halloween. When the veil thins, we're able to communicate with the spirit realm more easily. The veil is thinned. The magnetic fluid has become less dense, and our frequencies are able to penetrate it more easily. So understand the analogy of fall, understanding fall as the soul, Adam and Eve. When you were a monad, Adam and Eve combined, and the Elohim separated you. This is before the physical realm, right? Before physical incarnation. Your Adam and Eve were separated, right? And they fell into the great cycle of necessity. And that cycle of necessity pulls them down into the physical realm. Those spiritual bodies acquire ether bodies, then fire bodies, then air bodies. Then it dips into the physical tomb of the waters, the watery earth. That sizzles the Holy Ghost, creating the physical individualized being, before just an essence of either polarity. So as you descend into this physical realm, into the great cycle of necessity, you fall, as in fall, because as the leaves fall off the tree, you fall from your spiritual state into matter. And that's when we understand the deeper layers of the law of analogy. Because not only, most people think that fall represents the death of the human body or elderly age, but that's only on a physical level. Don't forget that the astrological will and the four seasons also mirror the spiritual descent of the soul, and understanding that fall represents the soul's fall into the physical realm. And if those trees reignite, we understand that being spiritual resurrection. After this journey of polarity and duality, you will have to embark on that higher quest. And it's understanding how to have the appropriate elemental composition here to transmute the earth and water. Just like Alvin Boy Kuhn said, that fire and air element has to transmute the crucible, in the crucible, the earth and the water. Right? Your body's, you've been encased in a tomb of earth and water. You live your most part of your life in automatation, right? It's living life as if it's a dream unconscious, right? And then when you experience the water baptism, you're awakened into truth. It's almost like you're pulled in and aware that you're in the huge cosmic ocean. Yeah, so we always go through the various different modes, right? Dry, wet, moist. We have cardinal, fixed, mutable. And we have to understand that that cardinal energy is more so in the spiritual realm. And when we're pulling from those spiritual fires, we're reaching out to those archetypes of Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius. And that fiery archetype is what is alluded to as the fires descending from heaven, because the fires descend from heaven and evaporate the holy waters of earth and the astral and firmament waters above. And that evaporation takes place. And that's why all souls are on an ascending arc. Only if you lose connection with the Christ or the internal principle or the eternal cosmic good is when you become too dense and start to descend into the more dense cubic Saturnian vibrations. So kind of diving back into the law of analogy, just kind of showing how the seasons are within the fairy tales like Jack and Jill, right? And understand the names always relate to the sun, and understanding the story is always about duality, male and female, sun and moon, and how these currents are also in the body. See, the Pell of water is actually represents the heavenly currents that are descending in the ancient Taoist tradition. The substance of Aquarius, the man with the pitcher of water, that's constantly feeding the central nervous system. Right? We have the man with the pitcher of water constantly feeding that knowledge from above, constantly dumping out the cosmic waters that we acquire through those heavenly aspirations and divine inspirations. Yeah, I appreciate you, Lemon, in the comments. So when Jack fell down and broke his crown, right, describing the sun descending after reaching its peak. So the crowned head being that state of higher consciousness, because all the stories also represent this realm of duality in our higher mind, right? We're living in our higher mind, and then we lose it and we fall, right? Just like Joseph in the coat of many colors. His dad gives him the coat of many colors, the garments, the astral garment, the causal garment, the mental garment, the 7 chakras, the 7 planets, that when we descend, we acquire the coat of many colors, the causal garment, the mental garment, the 7 chakras, the 7 planets, that when we descend, we acquire the coat of many colors, right? But then we descend, we're forsaken, we're betrayed, we fall in the pit for 3 days. Now, 3 is a symbol of the 3 mountains, the 3 labors the main 3 labors we have to conquer: mind, heart, and action. Thought, feeling, action. Every tradition, we have to learn how to proactively, consciously exist within these 3 layers of our being. And that's what this is. It's a training ground for us to be able to use this as a footstool, right? The physical realm is God's footstool. Malkuth is God's footstool, right? We want to get into the higher branches, right? The adversary, right, or the adversarial forces, right, their goal is to try to trap as many beings in the lower astral realm to feed their army of astral parasitic entities. Because when you die, they know whatever state you're in here in the physical realm, you will instantaneously transition into that state of being upon death. So the goal of the adversarial beings, right, the beings that are the shadow or the negation of light and truth, right, they don't want to live under the laws of higher truth. They want to do their own thing. They want materialism, and they're mad that they don't have physical realm to return to, because a lot of people believe in reincarnation. But why do you think they try to sustain their life so long, or try to actually transplant themselves into someone so easily? Is because they are terrified of what awaits them in the higher planes. So we have someone in the comments wanting to speak on the shepherd's staff and its practical techniques. Now, there was a video I did, I believe it's on the Santa Claus videos, that we explain the shepherd's staff, or the candy cane, and how their esoteric knowledge is actually distilled in these children's fairy tales or stories that we're told. Now, the shepherd's staff, right, is a direct symbol of the energy circuit that flows in a naturally upright human being, right? The energy rises up the spine, around the head, and right here resting. Now, in a practical technique, you can transmute energy by moving up, by breathing from your abdomen, slowly squeezing the lower muscles of the bottom of the spine, and guiding that air up to the chest, up around the shoulders, and use your eyes at this point to look up and pull the energy. Pretend that the eyes have to push that energy over the head and have it rest right here in Brahman's cave. Sacred Brahman's cave, the crystalline cave, right here in Brahman's cave. Sacred Brahman's cave, the crystalline cave, the Eye of Horus, thy eye be single. Because you have to transmute that animal instinctual energy up the shepherd's staff. And the shepherd's staff is also a symbol, because in ancient Egypt you have the pharaoh sarcophagus, right, with the shepherd's staff and the flail, right, Aries and Taurus. But yeah, because Aries and Taurus is in the higher mind. Aries is the cerebrum and Taurus is the cerebellum. And they operate and guide you throughout your whole life. But we have to also understand that the shepherd's staff, right, is to slowly nudge your thoughts into order, to be gentle, mercy, to be gentle and kind with your fellow men. But then the flail is to say, hey, you know what? I'm not putting up with this. We need justice. And sometimes with the wild animal, to the flail, to get them to act in order. Right? So understanding the mysteries of the shepherd's staff and the flail is to understand that we have to live within the pillars of justice and mercy. We cannot just be a relentless justice tyrant, and we cannot just be an overly merciful pacifist that allows one's family to be annihilated. Right? We have to live within the central arena of mercy and justice. Right? And that's the mysteries of the shepherd's staff, because the breathing techniques of the ancients always taught that the energy must be drawn up the spine from the back, up and around the head, pushed over the head. Jack and Jill went up the hill, because Ida and Pingala are going up the hill. The energy has to come up and around. Once it reaches Brahma's cave and you acquire the sight, then it descends into the heart and rest. Okay? So that is the mystery of the shepherd's staff. Now, to get back to Jack and Jill, the moon always follows the sun descends, the moon descends, the fall of light into matter follows the sun descends, the moon descends, the fall of light into matter. Inner processes, Jack and Jill being the solar and lunar currents. We talked about them being Ida and Pingala. They ascend up the hill, representing the rising energy through the spinal column. The pell of water being a sacred secretion, the magnetic fluid that descends from the cerebrum down into the first vertebrae of the spine, and then makes its ascent up. So it's just a great rhythm of the seasons, also reflected in your innate human anatomy. And that's why it's very important to understand the Bible as a physical anatomy book, as well as a spiritual analogy book. The great book of analogies. is a great terminology for what holy books are. Because once you understand the truth of analogy, correspondence, the law of similarity, as above, so below, then the whole book of nature opens up to you and you're able to learn something transcendental every day. So I wanted to get back into the esoteric divide of the 19th century and just understand that there are other ways to perceive karma, reincarnation, the next life, why you're here, who you were, where you're going. And it's very interesting to understand that the Western current did get somewhat infiltrated by the Eastern current. And that the Eastern current was, that Eastern esoteric current was infiltrated and also fell into the age of ignorance as well. Yeah, appreciate everyone in the chat. Thank you. So that Eastern current basically was politicized to like say, hey, these people are living in their circumstances because of what they did in the past life. Well, there's another way to see that. If the physical realm is a womb and you exit the womb and you become an independent, individualized spiritual being, why would you degrade yourself to return to matter if it wasn't that you reached the highest heavens and only decided to descend for the salvation of humanity or to teach, right? You could, and even that, it is explained that they don't manifest physically, they manifest spiritually, visibly, and that the higher people that transcend to the next realm utilize the essence of impressions to give knowledge to people in the physical realm, to their close disciples. That's what the esoteric teachings are taught. That's why the second book, Thomas H. Burgoyne, The Light of Egypt 1, was written by him while he was alive, and The Light of Egypt 2 was written by his assistant after he was dead, through him, beyond the tomb. Because once you're able to tap into that magical chain, then you are able to acquire the ability to communicate eternally. That's why we're all connected to a magical chain going all the way back. We have our manifested chain here. We have Santos Bonacci, Bill Donahue, Jordan Maxwell. We have all the way back to Manly P. Hall currents, Thomas H. Burgoyne currents, George Carey currents. That's the Western current. And the true Eastern current allows us to fully understand who we are and where we're going. And understanding how to utilize the higher faculties, reason, intuition, wisdom, understanding, and love as the alchemical ingredients to ignite the fire that brings us from the calcination phase all the way to the final stage of the alchemical process, which is projection. What would we be projecting into? The body of fire and air that we've been creating our entire life. It's the garment of glory, the hope of our glory, the shining armor, the solar body. Every experience we do for the good, for the Christ, and for the goodwill of all feeds that body. And everything we do that contradicts and goes against the eternal good disintegrates a part of that body. And what kind of vehicle we have in the next life is definitely determined by our state of being that takes place here and now. And understand that every day, even if it's a monotonous day, is a great alchemical process is taking place within you that is helping you train for your eternal cosmic duty of eternal immortal progression forever and ever. Of eternal immortal progression forever and ever. And that esoteric divide in the 19th century, where we mostly get fragmented esoteric teaching, is from the East. We don't even know what the Western current is of birth, death, and resurrection. And to understand that not all bad things that happen to you are a punishment. Not all bad things you do to other people are a punishment for something they did in their past life. Sometimes you're just a shitty person. Someone got hurt, right? Sometimes God or the creator or whatever higher source that is developing these individualities, our lives are so intrinsic and so intricate. But sometimes we're thrown a hurdle to overcome it. Why was Joseph in the story thrown a hurdle? To be thrown in the pit, to be sold into slavery of Egypt, only to become the top dog. Right? It's a story of the soul's victory, the top dog. Right? It's a story of the soul's victory over circumstance. I recommend everyone listen to the Manly P. Hall lecture, The Soul's Victory Over the Circumstances of Matter. And understand that that is the only thing that matters. You're here to be a conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, which seasonally is analogous to the sun in the summer months, or 12 noon. So you have to acquire that crown of the sun at 12 noon, but also respect the sun in Libra at sunset. Respect the changes of the seasons, because within the transitions of the seasons are great holy portals, especially the transition into fall, from summer into fall. A great portal is opened in between the worlds. A great separation between the conscious mind and subconscious mind is taken off. Right? In the summer and spring months, it's almost like we're living in our conscious mind. But here, in the fall, in the northern hemisphere, we're entering, just exiting Libra. Boom. Equilibrium. A perfect balance between the left and right hemisphere, where we're able to explore the contents of the unconscious and explore the sacred imagery of the higher conscious, which gives the symbols to the unconscious for the conscious mind to assimilate. And that's why meditation is much more easier in the fall. The fall reminds us that our old ways and old habits are falling away. That our old perceptions of things that are now not fit for the path are now falling away. And that we know that they will resprout again when the sun is in Aries, the Lamb of God, takes away the sins of the world. Because when we come out of that tomb and resurrect, we can experience what immortality feels like. We can understand the transitions of the soul through the laws of analogy and similarity by closely studying and observing the nature of the seasons on an analogetic, on a metaphorical level, and not just for face value. Understand that your whole anatomy is an ecosystem full of seasons. And sometimes in the winter, you're in your summer, and sometimes in the summer, you're facing a winter. You're either heading into a storm or leaving a storm, as one of my friends has said. So, as Adam and Eve descended into the physical realm and fell and were clothed in animal skins, aka the physical body, we understand that as they descended into the physical realm, they lost cognizance of their higher abodes. That's why it said that we left Eden, because when we come into the fall and into winter winter representing full entombment in the physical plane, then our higher senses are dulled. Yep. And in the comments, Lemon Squeezy speaking about Manly P. Hall's encounter with a Indian sage, Native American sage, and witnessing miracles. Now, when we understand about miracles from Eliphas Levi's perspective, miracles have causes. It's just understanding those supernal natural laws. And tries not to show the miracles to the profane, because the profane will only think of how to profit off it physically. And the true saint who acquires miracles must perform it within the most sanctity and secrecy of himself and his closest disciples, or someone who really needs it. Now, in the case of Mallet Hall, of course, what an amazing thing to be able to witness a miracle firsthand, to be able to come face to face with the spiritual world is a truly amazing feat. And when you knock, the door will open, and if you seek, you shall find. And if you listen for the truth will find you, and you will stumble upon small building blocks and puzzle pieces along the way. All you have to do is ask for the knowledge, and it will be given to you. All you have to do is seek it, and the right people, the right time will come and show you what you're looking for. You're never alone. Your consciousness is always there for you. You always are divinely guided. Every event in your life is divinely orchestrated from entities and beings in yourself from the future, which is beyond the tomb. So start having a more sky mindset, and hats off to y'all. Have a good Sunday.